All right, all right, all right. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Just give me 1 second. How's everybody doing? Just 1 second. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled "From Idea to Bestseller: How to Write and Publish a Children's Book in 90 Days." I am your host, Corey Day, but you can also call me Kay. And we have two very special guests joining us today. Marwa, a successful Kunda Kids author, and we also have Louisa, who will be sharing more insight about Kunda Kids Publishing as a service. But before I let them introduce themselves, I want to provide a brief introduction to those of you who might be new to Kunda Kids. Just really quickly, if you don't know, Kunda Kids is an award-winning children's publishing. We are an ed tech and an animation company, really with a mission to inspire the next generation to learn about African culture and history. I mean, children all over the world are not just enjoying our book, but they are also using our app to learn. I mean, even preschoolers are being entertained with Kunda and Friends animation series on YouTube. So if you are interested in any of these, please make sure to visit our website at kundakids.com. All right. Now that we have that out of the way, Mara, are you there? Can't really
Hi,
see.
Richard.
Perfect. Could you please give us a brief 1 minute introduction about yourself?
That's always a very difficult question. However, I'm an Egyptian girl. I was born in Saudi Arabia. However, I lived my whole life in Egypt, studied English language and literature, and that's how I actually got to be acquainted with a lot of different cultures. Language has always been the thing that carried me through, this journey of my life. Writing also was one of the weapons that was really handy for me. Basically, I'm very proud of my African heritage, proud of my African identity. Everything that I've done so far in my life, I think, has led me to this point where I can translate that into something that will probably make the life of our children better. It's very difficult for us to find the acceptance within each other. However, I think there's a better hope for our youth, inshallah. So basically, I've studied English language and literature, and then I've worked in the corporate life for some time. Uh, did some writing for English speaking magazines here in Cairo. Never really thought of being an author. It just happened. But because it happened, I feel like it's something that I should have done a very long time ago. So yeah, I'm happy I met Kunda Kids and the team.
Thank you so much, Mara, for the introduction. Welcome to the webinar. Next, we have Louisa. Louisa, please take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks, Corday. Thanks, everyone. And a huge thank you to Marwa for taking time to be with us. So I'm Louisa. I'm co-founder of Kunda Kids. I started Kunda Kids with my other co-founder and husband, Dele. Our mission at Kunda Kids is to raise the next generation of global citizens, which is young people today, Gen Alpha, the people who will be our leaders, our game changers, our problem solvers, and really to do that through the power of storytelling. So we work with educational institutions around the world, as well as parents and educators, to deliver amazing stories, one of which is Malik's Bridge, which I'm sure Marwa will tell you a lot about, but is one of our really, really best-selling and also most heartfelt produced books that we have in our collection, because it really, really promotes unity. And I think what I hope to get out of this call, which is, well, this webinar, which is about how to sort of write and a bit of insight into the publishing process. I hope to give a little bit of insight into how we go about publishing at Kunda Kids, the kind of things that you might want to consider should you be thinking about producing and publishing a book yourself, or any questions that you have for us regarding the process. But yes, indeed, I'm the founding person at Kunda Kids. And yeah, really looking forward to today's conversation and grateful for everybody that's been able to join us.
Thank you so much, Louisa. I really, really appreciate it. Now, to everyone out there, I know many of you are here today because you have a creative idea and you're looking to bring that idea to life. So here's what we have in store for you today in terms of agenda. I'm going to start by asking Marwa a few questions about her journey, and then I'll turn over to Louisa for some valuable insight into the publishing process. And then after that, we'll spend about 15 minutes to open up the floor for live questions. And, and if anybody have any additional questions, we also have other means where you can get in contact with us where I'll share at the end. So with that being said, let's dive in. Marwa, really quickly, could you please talk about yourself in terms of your creative process and how books have impacted your life and what inspired you on your journey to becoming an author?
I think becoming an author was just the normal result for having the sort of interest that I have, especially when it comes to Africa. I just found that it just came natural to me. I have some issues that I want to speak about and I want to address them. But most importantly, I want to have the coming generation grow up without having to face things that I have personally faced. So having this sort of idea, coupled with the help of Kunda Kids, they are really a great team. Converting the idea that comes from an adult mind into a book where the language is suitable for children, this is something that does take a lot of work, a lot of pushback, give and take, and and at the end of the day, it does. It's The result usually becomes a very great one because the motive behind the process itself was always to not harm the idea and deliver it as best as we could, where we can deliver it in a way that it still speaks to a child and encourages a parent to buy the book for their children. So what started as just a pitch for an idea that someone could write on the Kunda Kids team ended up by me having countless meetings with the team and going back and forth with describing the beginning, middle, and end. And then I did suggest the visual direction, which I'm so happy that the team tried their best and they succeeded in reflecting my vision into something that is I could hold in my hand. Like, Yani, look at this beauty. I look, this cover wasn't supposed to be this one. I was already very happy with the first one. However, because of their relentless research, they came up with this amazing one. I was sold the minute I saw it. It just blew me away. So that in addition to I'm not sure if you've actually bought Malik's Bridge, but if you've actually bought it, you will find that there's a middle section that caused me to be very unsure, and I wanted it to be there. However, because of how smart of them, as a team, they could actually pull it off in a way that makes it, informative, and I hope didn't, make anyone feel left out because it speaks about the countries where the 5 characters come from. I pray that I will probably, be able to do something similar for other, African countries. But yeah, this basically how it happened. Yani, that was quickly how the whole thing happened.
Cool. I mean, that's really, really exciting. I'm sure a lot of people on this webinar are very curious. So how did you structure your idea into a story that engaged young readers?
Come again?
How did you structure your idea into a story that engaged young readers?
Well, you know what?
You talked about how you have all these things in your head and you wanted to write an impactful book, but there's a structure to that, right?
And you know what? I think I was lucky because I think I could speak all the ideas in one book in a way. The book itself and the feedback that I get inspires me probably for other ideas, for other books. However, it still is very comprehensive, because the ideas that I started with, that I wanted to speak about, I think we could actually pull it all off in one book. I wanted people to look, regardless of whatever background they have, African background they have, they will find out that they were represented in this book. Regardless of which country, they actually are respected for the value they present. I wanted parents to be mindful of having their children experiment at an early stage in their lives, because I personally, if I had experimented, like I have this thing for architecture, if I had experiment, I'd probably be an architect right now. So that's something that I think may have been an opportunity for me if I did actually experiment earlier in life. Maybe the literary part took over anyway. Um, so these things, and the idea of the children connecting and them transcending location, background, skin color, all of those ideas are things that I pray that are just the normal life, especially amongst us Africans. um I think, and without going into very serious matters, I think everyone is capable of, a level of, racism in them, whether it's negative or positive. I just feel like we need to be appreciative of each other's differences and operate from a place of kindness and uh, um, understanding for each other, where we are trying to get to know each other rather than judge each other for whatever reasons. Just
Yeah.
take the person in front of you and deal with them as they deal with you, and move from there, basically. So for me, these ideas, to have them all represented in a children's book, it wasn't an easy job, by the way. Yani, I think um, one of the things that was really remarkable for me is that Kunda Kids team have an expert that converts the language from an adult like type of language that would be understood by an adult into terms that are suitable for children.
Yeah.
That was something great for me. I was really happy that this actually was the process. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of work, and it took a lot of editing. It took a lot of summarizing, because the original version, it was really far bigger than what was actually printed. So
Yeah.
because I did want to say a lot. However, again, the idea for the midsection did actually skim through a lot of what I wanted to say. And again, the presentation and how it was executed was really amazing. And I'm just happy I did work with Kunda Kids.
It's funny that you said that because I also I'm in the middle of writing my book, and the funny thing is,
Congratulations.
thank you. And it wasn't the funny thing is that I had this idea. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a very active dad, and for me, I like to change. I don't like the narrative that dads are not as involved in their children's lives. That's probably back in the day, right? But we, the 21st century dad, we have a totally different outlook. It's a division of labor, especially in my household. So the fact that I was able to come in and I had this idea that I wanted to just write in a book, and really Kunda Kids really helped me to navigate. I mean, questions like, hey, what is the character? What is the personality? What do you want the kids to gain from this? So I can definitely relate with you in terms of just the team helping you to really structure your idea. So, which absolutely makes sense.
Absolutely. And I'd just love to add something there, that I think that we can all never underestimate how important our individual stories are. We all have a story inside us to tell. And I remember in the earlier conversations that we were having with Marwa, and how passionate she was about not only Africa, but a unified Africa. And really, the book is a product of shared values and a shared vision for what we hope children will grow up to understand about themselves and about the world that we live in. One of the I think the misconceptions that we've seen in the diverse children's storytelling industry and within publishing as well is that diverse stories are for diverse audiences. So African stories are for African kids. And actually at Kunda Kids, and we're so blessed to have somebody like Marwa that has this global citizen global citizen vision that we share, that all children should be able to learn about different people and places. And I'm hoping at some point in this conversation we'll get to talk about this middle page that Marwa was talking about, and whether she wanted to keep it or not. If you have the book, you'll know what that middle page is referring to. But for those that don't have the book, it's this page that takes a break in the story to really explore Africa in a very special way. And as part of, it's a beautiful page. And each of the characters in the book are of African descent, but they look very different. So there's Lisa, who's white and South African. There's Amina, who's Egyptian and North African in that sense, and of Arab heritage. And then there is Ola, who's Nigerian, and Malik, who's the protagonist in the story, who's from Somalia. And having been able to read this story and have the privilege of reading the story and talking about the story with children and educators, I love how children are just so innocent and interested and curious to know about people and places. They don't have a lot of the biases that we seem to accumulate as adults as we walk through the world. So their interest in these characters, for me, really solidifies and highlights the importance of how we need to continue to teach children about different cultures, how we need to teach children more stories and progressive stories about Africa, because that's often it's missing in quantity and in quality. And I think Malik's Bridge is such a perfect demonstration of unity in Africa and the diversity of Africa. When we think about diversity and inclusion, we think about having a black or brown skinned person in the room, right? Because Caucasians have been centered in that global space. But I think what we do with something around like Malik's Bridge is that we show that Africa as a continent, which people think of very homogeneously, actually has such a diverse range of people and cultures, of different skin tones, different heritage, different backgrounds, different stories, different ancestry. And I think Malik's Bridge is just chipping at the surface of the potential to really talk about Africa's diversity. And really, if I think Mao and I have had conversations about, how we would love to just be able to expand the story, but it's just a call to anybody to never underestimate the stories and the visions that you have sitting in your heart and inside of you. You never know how powerful they can really be once you put pen to paper, and add imagery and find a way of telling your story. So yeah, that was it for me. I know I interjected thinking I had a little to say, but I had a lot to say.
No,
I want to add something to that as well, and
Sure.
that is even the selection of the children's nationalities was intentional. Like, I think everything was done intentionally. Them being in Kenya, where a lot of international schools are, the lead character, which is Malik, him being Somalian, honestly, I think it was one of the most important things for me, because and also, again, coming back to why I wrote Malik's Bridge to begin with, it's that I want to remove the associated perception about Africa and certain African countries, them being always associated with famine, poverty, and specifically Somalia, because I grew up with those stories. However, when I dealt with Somalian people as a grown up, I met doctors, I met engineers, I met great people who actually made something out of themselves. So I think it's time we represent Somalia and Africa along with it in a better way for ourselves, for each other, for the world, because that's basically how it works. We acknowledge each other first, and then the world sees us as we want to project ourselves, and I think I wanted someone from outside. I think I wanted to do it because someone has to. Someone needs to tell the Somalians, we see you in a different, type of light. We no
Yep.
longer associate you with those, poverty, famine images from when we were children.
Absolutely. And speaking on diversity and inclusion, I know Marwa, you're really big on just spreading the news that look, regardless of where we're from, regardless of what our differences are, at the end of the day, we have a lot in common than people might realize. So the question I have for you is, how do you want children to remember your book?
As a book that empowered them, that at least guided, not shaped their thinking or way of thinking, but at least showed them the way. A book that they had fun reading, like genuinely enjoyed reading. Not just the children. I want the families, the parents, when they interact with their children, I want them to feel like I'm feeding value into my child's brain. I just want them to walk away feeling that there is value that they took from this book. So yeah.
Okay.
You know what? I might end up saying a lot of other things because being in front of camera makes you forget, makes me forget at least. But basically, I want people who interact with the book, regardless of their age, to find that there is something that maybe they couldn't put in words or teach, to be, delivered through the book.
Absolutely. And I can absolutely relate with that. And before we go to Louisa really quickly, just for the people that are on this webinar that are curious, Marwa, can you please describe your experience from when you had the idea, to all the way to you getting your hard copy book? Like, what was that like?
Again, I love the storytelling because I think it's the best, method of communication. So what happened is that I went into a clubhouse room to congratulate Louisa and Delhi uh, on a new book that they published, and I was just like suggesting an idea, not pitching really, just suggesting an idea of a book that goes in as 1, 2, 3, right? And then we ended up scheduling a call, right? I was like, yeah, fine, let's talk about this because it's interesting to me. But then again, I felt like Delhi is really asking me to write the book, and I was like, okay, that does sound very interesting. And I have the writer in me that she's ready to do whatever. And who's better, to represent the idea than myself, the one who has it. So um, I did like create a summary of the idea, sent it to them. It did appeal to them to an extent that I was told that they kind of paused a lot of other projects to work on that book, because of how good the idea was. Not because it's mine, but because it really has this value. We very quickly we created the structure for the book, how the events are gonna unfold. Then I remember I created like a presentation, a quick one, putting together how I want the characters to appear, and maybe even different scenes from the story, which Chike did work on very amazingly. His work is just awesome. I've seen the story and the characters come to life, um, like gradually, from them being just sketches to, agreeing to how they're gonna be dressed and which scenes, everything. I've been there, and although it was a lot of work, you know what? I had fun doing it. I had fun doing it, and it's just amazing. Wallahi, I still can't believe I'm holding a book that I wrote. I'm a published author, y'all.
I love the passion, and I can see it in your face. I can hear it in your voice. It's one thing to have an idea; it's another thing to actually have the idea, holding it, and you're like, "Wow, I'm really, really so proud of what I've done." And I really, really appreciate you, Mara, for just sharing.
Because I remember the ideas that I opposed to sometimes, and the accommodation and the diligence, and them being patient and very understanding and accommodating, because I'm a Muslim from a Muslim background, so that also could be something that could get in the way when we represent some events that do take place. So I wanted it to actually be acceptable by the whole universe, that everyone who reads it doesn't find anything that goes against their values. And I know that Muslim people and how they think and how they want their children to be, what they are presented to. So the team never ever let me feel that I'm a little too much or anything like that. they were really, really patient and very understanding and accommodating. And this is something that is not easy to do. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Marwa. And obviously, you guys have heard it from Marwa in terms of her experience with Kunda Kids. And I'm going to turn it over to Louisa really quickly, just to give you guys more insight. So really quickly, Louisa, how does Kunda Kids Publishing as a Service support authors in bringing their book to life, really just ensuring that their success in the publishing journey?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So I know, Corridors, you're very well aware, but to everybody else, Kunda Kids is an edtech and media company. And within a lot of what we do, we have a publishing arm. And just to give you all a little bit of context, so my experience prior to being the co-founder of Kunda Kids was in publishing. So I spent a number of years working at Cambridge University Press, where I worked in product marketing and really learned the business of publishing, and also the business of education and books. So that was really helpful. And when we first wrote our initial first books at Kunda Kids, Dele and myself, when Kunda Kids wasn't even a thing, I think we were still registering the domain name at that point. But we thought to ourselves, do we want to take our stories to a large publisher? And we thought about it, and we had conversations with some publishers because I had some connections. And really what we realized was that we didn't personally feel like a publisher was going to be able to do anything that we couldn't do ourselves, particularly as independent Black publishers with the intent to be able to have presence in the African space. So we felt that possibly within just the Black British community, we might have some support, but not as extensive as we would have wanted it. And we really felt like with the community that Dele and myself had built already, that we would probably be able to sell our books and the vision of Kunda Kids faster than any global publication could. So given the strength of our community, given our understanding of our audience, and also our background and expertise in marketing, that's why we decided to have a publishing arm and to be a publisher ourselves. Instead of going to a publisher, we decided to start a publishing company. And Kunda Kids is a publishing company, so we publish our own stories, Kunda Kids stories with independent authors such as Marwa and her story Malik's Bridge. And then we also publish full rights books as well, which means that a person could get their books published and they would have the right to it and they could market it however they chose to do, which is what we would have done had that solution been available to us at the time. But so that's how our publishing sort of process works. In terms of Kunda Kids books, we're in, I believe it's about 300 schools and libraries around the world. And the importance of being in schools and libraries is really, really key to our ethos at Kunda Kids. All of our books are produced not only just to be fun and entertaining books for children, which is important because children just want to have fun, but to make sure that there are educational and moral pillars and milestones in place with every book. With every book that we have, we know what the educational outcomes and the learning outcomes are for each story, whether a book is about kindness and generosity, whether it's about advancing understanding and awareness of STEM subjects, whether it's about soft skills such as friendship, sharing, and unity for various different ages, from preschool to various primary key stages. Those are sort of the areas that we sort of focus on. And we've mentioned a few people in this conversation. So Chike is one person that we've mentioned. So Chike is our art director, and he works with the Kunda Kids team. And what I really appreciate about Chike's contribution to the children's content space is that he is involved in all of our publishing projects on a strategic level. In some cases, he does get involved on a hands-on level. He doesn't illustrate directly a lot of our books, but he does illustrate some. He did illustrate Malik's Bridge because he felt particularly passionate about that story, and we all did. So Malik's Bridge was really a project that we made sure that we extracted as much, value from our team as we could. But Chike worked as an art director, and he worked with Francis and IK and a number of different illustrators who have extremely impressive backgrounds and experience. So there's Chike, then there's Martina. So Martina works in editorial. Martina is actually the person behind a lot of stories on the Kunda Kids app. So if you have the Kunda Kids app and you're enjoying stories there, Martina is one of the people behind a lot of those stories and works directly within our publishing framework. And then there's Ellen she works contractually within the business, but Ellen has worked on a lot of the bigger projects internationally, from Peppa Pig to projects on CBBS, and has a wonderful portfolio. So with that said, we do have a great team, but with that also said, Kunda Kids is a small company. So we are a small company, and as much as we're growing in terms of our presence, and we're excited to have a lot of demand, we are a small sort of team that's expanding. And with that, we like to be really particular about the stories that we have. We don't just publish anything. We make sure that anything that's done with Kunda Kids is done at the highest level of quality aesthetically, is done with the highest level of quality editorially, and has input from child development experts and editors. Michaela, who is a children's teacher and editor, had feedback for Malik's Bridge and worked a lot on that. So we are a small team, but we are a really well-oiled engine. We are trying to make sure that the more products that we are able to produce in terms of stories for children are stories that we really know are going to move the needle in how children are learning about themselves and about the world, that they align with our vision around global citizenship, just like Mao and Malik's Bridge. And that's typically how we work. We do have sort of a framework in terms of what we offer, from editorial to design to marketing as well, and navigating the maze that is things like Amazon and getting into libraries. But I guess we can get into that. But that's sort of how we work, in a bit of a whistle-stop tour on that.
Thank you so much for introducing the team, and hopefully, everything that Louisa has said is giving you guys an idea of how Kunda Kids ensure that the author has a successful publishing journey.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Sorry to interrupt, Korede, and I missed one important point. Korede, you mentioned earlier in the webinar that you're producing a book as well, and that is absolutely correct. So Korede is also an author. So we love to create and receive stories from anywhere. People that work at Kunda Kids, including Dele and myself and Korede, have our own stories that are published in Kunda Kids. We love to have creative people in our platform. We love to publish stories from inspiring people that we meet just in happenstance, like Marwa that Dele met on Clubhouse, and was so inspired by her vision and everything that she wanted to do, and that's resulted in a published book. So we don't have, I would say, an overly formalized process in terms of some publishing companies have very strict submission windows in which you can submit stories. We just love to hear back from everybody. We'll try and always take time to understand what it is that you want to get out. But if anything, we love to just have a great story where it's at. And Korede's story is one about celebrating dads. And as he mentioned, really being able to put active fathers on the forefront and celebrate the contribution that dads have. And we're really looking at a really fun way of telling that story. And Korede, since you're based in the US as well, we just think it's wonderful that we're going to have some presence in the US a little bit more. And we do have a number of authors that we're working with in the US as well. So sorry, again, Korede interrupted slightly a bit longer, but I just wanted to shout out, your own journey as an aspiring author and give you your flowers on that.
Thank you so much. And I think that's, you kind of, you talked about it briefly. I love the fact that it's not such a strict process. One thing about Kunda Kids is that we're all about fun. So everything we do, we like to make sure that there's some sort of fun involved, just because it just makes the process pretty much easy. And I know a lot of people on here are probably wondering exactly what the process looked like, right? So could you please give us an insight on the process from the initial idea to the finished book, and what advantage does that provide to the author? You know, so if I'm somebody right now and I'm like, you know what, I have an idea, I think I want to take this further, I'm going to go on Kunda Kids website and I'm going to fill out the form. What does that look like from the time that they fill out the form all the way to the time they get the physical book?
Sure. Okay. Wonderful question. So regarding the sort of the time frame and the overall process for publishing a book, now in traditional publishing, I'm just talking typically and also from experience, from initiation, which is the time you have a conversation with either your agent or directly with the publishing associate about your story. It can take anywhere from 18 months to 24 months on average for a story to reach ideation to printing. That's in traditional publishing and with printing framework. Sometimes it can take longer, obviously for adult stories, but for a children's story, it can take anywhere between 1 year to 2 years on average. At Kunda Kids, we found a number of ways in which to fast track and kind of hack that process. So I just wanted to give you context before I explain. Within traditional publishing, you move from, it's called a waterfall effect. You move from one stage to another. So you'll have an idea, the idea will be edited, the story will be edited and finalized. When it's finalized and edited, then you work on the illustrations. When the illustrations are done, then you move to marketing. When marketing is done, then you think about wider distribution. At Kunda Kids, because we have a smaller team, we've really had to think about how we can innovate and be more nimble. So we have, which is more of a based and inspired on more of an iterative, innovative framework. We work so that we have an initial conversation and bring down the production time to about 3 to 4 months on average. That's the average time it takes for us to produce a book. 3 months for the average picture book, which is about 500 words, based on maybe about 28 illustrated pages, but anything maybe up to 32 pages and fuller illustrated can take up to 4 months. And we've been able to do that because once we start thinking about your story, we'll start thinking about your characters. And before we get the book fully illustrated, we'll work on always getting your cover done first. Right? When your cover is done first, that means our graphic designers can start putting mock-ups together and start thinking about the images that you'll need for your Amazon, the images that you'll need for your website, and anything that you need from a marketing, sales, and distribution standpoint. And whilst the marketing team is looking at getting your assets together, the editorial team is now working on getting your final pages together. So typically within the process, after you've written and illustrated, now we have to think about marketing. But at Kunda Kids, we've already been working on marketing since we got the cover for your book. So it allows us to think about how can we break up what has been traditionally done in publishing. And publishing is actually also quite an aged industry. It's an industry that, having worked in publishing, I understand. I've worked in publishing in-house, and I've also worked in publishing through agencies and worked with various publishers from Hachette. And I know that it's quite an aged industry with a lot of formats that work, but with also a lot of formats that need a lot of innovation and a lot of formats that could really benefit from technology. But because a lot of publishing houses are very large, to be able to create change in large organizations and institutions can be very challenging. So one of the benefits we have as a smaller publishing house, we're able to be a little bit more dynamic and responsive to the market. We're able to move through our processes a lot faster and pivot where we need to. So one of the main ways we go about reducing time and cost and cost to the end author as well is by working on multiple parts of your book simultaneously. So we don't wait for the book to be produced to start thinking about how we're going to create it on, how we're going to get it listed on Amazon, and making sure that it's shipped and in the warehouse and ready to be purchased. We'll start thinking about those things whilst the book is in production. So I think, you know, our business model around publishing is what really differentiates us. And in terms of the process, it typically starts from ideation. As soon as you sort of present your idea, we'll have a look at it. We'll see if it fits in within the Kunda Kids framework. And that framework is, in the most simplistic way, is it a children's book? Is it aged within our target audience? Is it promoting global citizenship? Is there an angle that celebrates diversity and inclusion, especially in regards to celebrating Africa, African culture, African heritage? So we'll look at, you know, all the things that are important for us and our community as a business. And then we'll ask about your own time frame. So some people want to publish a book and it's a private book. They don't intend for it to be sold to millions. They actually want a children's book for their son's 5th birthday and want 200 copies to be able to give it to friends and family and his classmates. And that's fine. We work on smaller scale projects like that, as well as somebody that has a project about sanitization and teaching children about cleanliness, and they're working on it with the World Health Organization and have a large order that they want to fulfill, and they want to be able to have great illustrations and a great perspective. So we work on projects from, you know, various different scales. So yeah, so we work on projects from various different scales and to various different sizes. So yes, I hope that answers your question. And once we're able to decide what you want, we'll match you with your editor. So you and your editor will have your own group. They'll work with you on your manuscript. You could have a story in mind, or you could also have no story in mind. We'll meet you where you're at, whether you just need to refine your manuscript or whether you actually need somebody to work with you a little bit more hands-on, or whether you actually need support in terms of ghostwriting. You have this wonderful idea, but you haven't yet put it to paper. Then we'll also match you with your design team. Chike, our art director, which I talked about beforehand, will oversee everything, but you'll have a lead illustrator, and you'll be able to talk about what kind of illustrative style you had in mind. Maybe you love something that's very wispy and artsy and like the idea of watercolors and sort of light pencil sketching. Maybe you wanted something more comic-y, more of a 3D artistic modern feel. We'll find an illustration style and then the appropriate artist to work with you. And then you work with everybody simultaneously, and you also have a project manager who will work with you to align on your timelines to make sure you can make your meetings, so we can catch up with you, have an update on how the artwork is going, and get you ready for what I think is the most important stage, which is getting ready to market your book. And that's helping you understand the Amazon ecosystem, understanding where you're based logistically, whether you're in Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, US, UK, Canada. We need to understand where you're based and how close or how far you are from our partners. And then that means that we can then decide how best to help you with running workshops on your behalf, maybe to further support and market the book, whether there are things that we can do online, whether we want to create an animated trailer for you, and roller banners and posters, all that kind of thing. So all of that is included within the whole timeline of being an author at Kunda Kids. What you need and what we can do is very much dependent on what you need. But really, it's a full service from beginning to end. And of course, we're not an agency, so we are not a publishing agency. We don't work on your behalf to market your book. and we won't work on your behalf to sell your book. But what we will do is make sure that your book is very much in our ecosystem, so that if we're talking to schools about our selection of books, your book will always be included. If we have market events and road shows, your book will certainly be there. When we have our website and we're doing bundles and promotions, your book will have visibility. So we don't work as an agency specifically to say that we'll have specific events on your behalf, but we are here to support you as much as we can and make sure that wherever we have avenues for your book to have visibility, as long as you're in the Kunda Kids family, then you will get priority always in terms of whatever opportunities we have to position your book in the best way that we can. I hope that answers your question, at least to some extent.
No, that's actually very, very good. And I think the key thing is, that from the initial conversation, really being able to understand, what I want, and you guys being able to set the expectations, right? Some people are able to publish their book within 90 days. Some people, it might take longer. It really just depends on how you envision your book to be, right? And then Kunda Kids would set the expectation in terms of when your book will be ready. So it's good that you're able to explain that. Really quickly, if you have any questions and you feel like you might forget, please put that in the comment section. After I'm done with Louisa, we're going to go through those questions. So just wanted to remind you guys. So for the last question, Louisa, as a publisher, what trend do you see emerging in the world of children's literature, and how does Kunda Kids stay current to provide authors with the best opportunities for success?
Great question. So my background prior to this was in consumer insight and product innovation. So I'm just a nosy person when it comes to wanting to know what is happening in our space, what are children consuming. I'm also a parent. My son is 4.5, so I just have a personal interest in terms of what is the best of the best regarding what children could be consuming right now. One thing I've come to really understand and appreciate also just from my experience work-wise is the importance of blended learning. And that's being able to match physical learning experiences, whether that's through books or whether that's through toys, and seeing how to make the most of online resources. I think as parents and educators, we often feel like we're on war with screen time, or we are at war with screen time in terms of how do we promote storytelling and promote reading instead of children wanting to be on social media and wanting to be on TV screens and on everything else. But I think what we need to understand is that statistically right now, at least in the UK, over half of children in the UK report to not enjoy reading. They don't see reading as something that they enjoy. That's a 2023 statistic, from the most notable organization in regards to children's reading behavior. And that's because there are a lot of distractions, and that doesn't mean that we have to give up on reading. In fact, it means that we have to double down in promoting reading culture with children, but we also have to meet children where they're at. And I think one of the important things we're doing at Kunda Kids is looking at how children want to learn and not how adults want children to learn. Right? And that comes from understanding how they learn, the media channels, avenues, and resources that seem to be getting the best out of our children in terms of learning outcomes. I've spent time working, in London, in Cambridge, in Hungary, in Mexico, around blended learning and how digital resources are being used in the classroom and how digital resources are being used at home, from homeschooling to just at home casual environments, with parents. And there are ways in which to support parents with resources. So, for example, with all of our stories, for instance, like Malik's Bridge and a number of our other stories, we're looking to create resources. So we have Malik, just for context, Malik's Bridge is a story about 4 friends at school. They are all of African descent, but range from different places: South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, and the protagonist from Somalia. Now, they find themselves in a situation where they're prompted to do a school project, and that school project is around building a bridge. And they're building a bridge that ideally, even though it might not be realistic, imaginatively, they want a bridge to be able to connect their African countries. This very much speaks to a lot of issues that we have in terms of African interconnectivity. Only this week, I've started seeing that a number of African countries are now making it easy for other African countries to come without visa requirements, and movement within Africa is improving, but it's long overdue. And this story was really touching on so many things that are even beyond children, but very much speak to a Pan-African motive to see how we can be better connected as people within the continent. So as such, within the story, they build a bridge, and the bridge ends up winning in a school fair, and ends up being a fantastic example of how, although we're all different, ultimately we're all one, in the form of a school project, which is something relatable to our target audience. But that's just a story, and it's a 5-minute read, right? So from beginning to end, back to back, it's 5 minutes. So once it's read, what happens? And at Kunda Kids, that's why I think, and with so much support and also inspiration and encouragement from Marwa, the author, we've turned the book into a workshop. So now we run Malik's Bridge workshops in libraries, and we've done it with schools as well in London, where children get to read the book, learn about Africa, which you've seen our double page spread if you've been with us in the conversation. If not, we'll show you again at some point. And then what we do, we bring all these resources from cups, Pritt sticks, glitter, pens, all these arts and crafts, and then children get to build their own bridges, right? And at the end, what we have is a successful reading opportunity. We've learned about Africa and different cultures. We've had a fantastic story time and literacy moment, and we've been able to layer it with fantastic practical application of everything that we've been learned. And after the children have sat down for 5-10 minutes, which is a lifetime when you're like 6 years old, they get to get up and get messy and get creative. And sometimes, I'll be honest, we come with all these resources, cups and all these random things that we've gathered, and we're like, how are they going to create bridges? And they create the most amazing structures, and can even give you very justified rationale in terms of how this bridge is going to work. And this is how I believe learning should take place. And I'm a very big advocate of learning through play. I talk about it all the time, the importance of play and how we learn about very advanced foundational, learning basics, and just through playtime. So the fact that we have these stories, we couple them with practical applications and solutions, guides that we share with teachers and parents on, this is a fun story, enjoy, and this is how to turn it into an exercise at home if you have some random stuff under the kitchen sink. This is how to turn it into a classroom activity for a teacher who has no time but all the enthusiasm in the world to engage with her students. Don't worry, we've done the work for you. I think that's how we go the extra mile at Kunda Kids. It's not just about producing a book, it's about producing the ecosystem and the infrastructure that needs to take place around the book.
Yeah, that's actually great. And I think really just sharing ideas with the authors as well is a key thing. Like, one of the things that I experienced when I was writing my book is the fact that, we have to meet the children where they're at. And the fact that I didn't know that, asking, questions when you're writing your book to keep the kids engaged is also another way to keep their attention. Because, when I originally wrote the book, I was like, okay, this is what I have. And then they Martina, I was working with Martina. Martina's brilliant, by the way. She's such a fantastic lady. She's like, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And then, the light bulb just started, and my ideas just started, going out of, it just went crazy, right? So the fact that Kunda Kids is not just able to just walk you through the entire process, but they're also able to help you with, how to, get your book to be, I guess, set your book up for success. It's such a big thing. So really appreciate that. All right, now we're going to open up the floor for live questions. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free. Well, I think we actually have one question here. So I'll read this really quickly before we go to others.
Sure.
This is from Shamika Denise. It says that love the marketing starts early because it's very important. My question is, what marketing support does Kunda Kids offer to authors after the book is published? I think you kind of touched on this earlier, but you might want to.
I'm happy to elaborate on it. Just from an actuality standpoint. So first and foremost, if you're publishing in the UK, for sure, you need an ISBN. So you need an ISBN number. You can't buy, I think it's very difficult to buy just one ISBN. I think you have to buy them in batches, which is why publishers usually buy them. So by publishing at Kunda Kids, we have a stock full of ISBNs. So you get an ISBN number. That means your book can be sold and be found and be categorized in the UK. And it also means that if you are on the Kunda Kids database as a publisher, you have access to getting onto the database to libraries across the UK. We have some libraries within our network in the US and some libraries within Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, and Kenya, but those networks are a little bit more relationable. But in the UK, for sure, if you are a Kunda Kids author, then you can walk into any library in the UK and ask for that Kunda Kids book. So you could ask for Malik's Bridge or Sarai's Culture Day or Astronauts to the Moon or whatever book you want in any library in the UK. And then that's pretty much one of the benefits of really being with us, that you don't have to do all the groundwork of figuring out that library system. So that's one. Secondly, a lot of publishing as a service businesses focus on getting you your book. Here is your book, go and run with it. Whatever you decide to do with it is absolutely up to you. But what that means is that you as an author stand there with your book and you don't know where to start with it. And it's such a shame to have something that you've worked so hard on, invested so much in, and not being able to have an engine to help you propel it further. So at Kunda Kids, your book will be stocked upon our books on our website. So because we sell direct to consumer, it will be on our product catalog that goes into schools and libraries, over 300 schools and libraries around the world. And like I mentioned, on our roadshow, on our events, anywhere where we're promoting Kunda Kids books, you can find your book there as well. So that's one benefits, is that we understand that your job is to create an amazing story. Your job is to inspire the next generation. Our job is to try and help you do that to the best of your abilities. Since we're based in the UK, as a UK-based publisher, we're able to help you significantly because of our positioning here. What we're trying to work to do is improve how we can support authors internationally. So UK, US, Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, and Kenya is where we have our largest footprint as a business. And for example, Marwa's based in Egypt. So Marwa, you're in Egypt at the moment, and we would love to be able to do more in Egypt. But as I mentioned, we're a small business and we're not a publishing agency. So when we can't publish for you, but what we can do is use our network as much as we can. And we will always have conversations on your behalf. And wherever it is doable, We will always see how we can support you, from that's when you launch your book, to shouting about it on social media, to leveraging our community that's registered on our newsletter, to events like this.
Thank you so much, Louisa. And just because, it's a UK-based company, that does not mean that we're restricted to the UK. Obviously, I'm here in the US, and we have big plans for the US market. So if you are based in the US, trust me, there's a lot of support here too. We are growing, so we're looking to expand our territory. Angeline, the floor is yours. You have a question?
Hi, I have a question about different languages. Sorry, my name is Angeline Mieza. I'm from South Africa.
Fine.
Hi, sorry. I'm a language student, a language practitioner, but I would say I have a passion for writing kids books. But since this conversation, I've had an idea of how to begin, or how to go about drawing a mind map of what I want to do. So now my question is, do you then support indigenous languages? Like, for instance, in South Africa, we have different languages and different cultures. So do you support that, or do you just only consider English?
Yeah, that's a
Thank
really good question. So, in terms of being able to support it, yes, absolutely, we can support it, right? But we would also be very aware and work within our limitations, and work very closely with you to make sure and where we might need additional help to. I'll give you an example. If you're writing an indigenous story, as far as working with you on the developmental side of the story, who's your protagonist? Do you have a conflict in the story? Is it well resolved? There are some fundamental elements to storytelling that, it doesn't matter what language it's in, need to sort of happen to ensure that you have a compelling story. In terms of editing it, the first question I would have as a publisher is, how well edited is this? Because if I don't speak your indigenous language, I might not be able to pick up on any grammatical errors, or any errors as far as your editorial is concerned. So we would see how difficult or how easy it is to find a third-party editor to make sure that whatever it is that's being produced has been proofread and proof-checked, and due diligence has taken place as far as editorial has gone. I think the design element of it is probably the most straightforward part. We would make sure that it looks and feels how you wanted it to be, and then you would decide how many print copies you would want, and you would decide the terms in which it would be distributed. So you could say, Louisa, I would really like this story to be distributed on the Kunda Kids website. It's not in English, it's in this indigenous language, but I would still really like you to have it on the website. We wouldn't be opposed to that. We would just absolutely market it and say it as that. We have an English website, so we would put in English, this is a story by one of the Kunda Kids independent authors. This is in this language, loved by these people. This is the learning outcome of this story, blah, 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 blah. But as far as marketing it into that community, if it's on a community that already sits within our community, then we would certainly expect that you would be able to help manage how word of mouth would happen in regards of marketing it. We would make the most of what we could do about it regarding the communities that we already have access to and that we've built. Does that make sense? But we wouldn't overlook it because it's not an English title. We actually have a number of titles in other languages that we're looking forward to sharing next year. And we also have an African language learning section on the Kunda Kids app. So very much here to have more stories in African languages. Whilst we haven't really expanded in that space this year, it's our intention to, and would certainly be more than happy to help within our remit and our capacity in bringing a title to life, regardless of what language it was in.
Thank you so much, Louisa. Because we're running out of time, I think we'll just take one last question. But if you have any additional questions, please, you can feel free to reach out to us. This is from Sherelle, and she says, please, can we discuss the cost of the publishing support you're discussing and how profit are shared? Thank you so much. I know, Louisa, we have 3 packages, so can you kind of give them an insight regarding that and then how profits are being shared?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we've agreed to. Perfect. Okay, thanks, Prince. So Prince has put up our packaging and our pricing and how it standardly goes. So we typically deal with people at 3 different stages. There's the light stage, which means you already have a manuscript that you've worked on, which has been proofread, and you have your illustrations. What you want to do is get yourself to be print ready. That means you need your final print document that's ready to go into a printer, and you might need help with your marketing assets. So that might be your page that will go on Amazon, and just some light marketing assets. But you're pretty much over the line. But you just need help in tidying up the loose ends and ensuring that you can go to a reputable printer and your files are verified and, like I said, proof ready. Then there is the middle standard, which means that you want to do your average children's picture book. You have a manuscript that you feel reasonably confident in. However, you would like some help with your illustrations and pretty much everything along the way as far as marketing assets, ISBN, getting you ready for Amazon and Kindle, and everything else. You might want some input on price. And then we have our premium. So our premium package is for the full package. That means you can extract everything from Kunda Kids. That means that whether it's an idea or the start of a manuscript, you will have a dedicated editor that will work with you developmentally and also proofread your story. You will have up to 32 pages of illustrations at your capacity. So if you wanted something to be very visual and quite heavily illustrated, because that's your vision for your book, this is a great package for you. Moreover, you would have the maximum allocation for all of your marketing assets. So this would be, as I mentioned, for Amazon online, and for anything else you wanted to do, whether it was a website or leaflets or any other marketing assets, from roller banners to things that maybe are a little bit more related to events and how you might want to appear, especially if you're planning a book launch. Then we'll be able to give you a significant amount of training, from how to be an Amazon author to also how to plan for your launch and how you might want to be positioned for other things such as schools and libraries, and getting you prepared and putting your best foot forward for that and your profile, your new profile now as an author. So those are how we simplify our packages. Of course, we're always happy to talk about your specific needs and exactly what you need. In terms of how the rights work and how revenue is allocated, you would have full rights to your story. So whatever it is that you pay Kunda Kids to help you with in terms of production, once your book is produced, you have the rights to your story. It is your story, it is your book. We have only a small amount of authors that get paid on royalty, and we have the rights to those books. But in terms of our publishing as a service and enabling people to publish their own books and move independently as an author, this is what we would be doing for you. And you'll be able to, and what having your rights means is that you have legal rights to do anything that you want, from branding to, if you wanted to sell your children's books to Nickelodeon or to Netflix, you have full capacity to do that. And if you wanted to be able to sell your books on the Kunda Kids website, that would be fine. We charge postage and packaging to our customers, and there would be a transfer allowance, but that would be absolutely it. You have your book and you could distribute it on the Kunda Kids website as well as anywhere else.
I think Sherelle had something else to say.
Yes, Sherelle.
Thank you so much. That was a really good breakdown of what you're offering. I think, just to be awkward, I think what I'm looking for is a bit of a pick and mix of each of those packages.
Right.
So if you're kind of open to that, I think actually, just to introduce myself, my name's Sherelle. This year I started up a parenting platform called Bantu Baby. I've self-published 2 books. Did book launches at various events that I was already attending. And as in terms of what you've described, the investment is there, it's been well received, but now it's about getting to that next level. And I find that's where I'm looking for more partnership arrangements with other Black booksellers, other Black publishers, and other Black authors. So I guess I'm, was interested in joining this webinar today just to see what your offering is and to see also what I can offer back, not just in monetary value, but in terms of my audience and my experiences. In writing children's books and my background in research and Black history.
Yeah.
So it's probably more of a conversation that it was able to be had on this forum, but I just wanted to say thank you for that and hopefully reach out to you at another time.
Thank you so much, Sherelle. I would love to have that conversation with you. And absolutely. So I think it's important to sort of note and to I guess, summarize it as such that everything that we offer is designed to enable you to be as independent with your book as possible. So where we're at is that we will help you assemble a team to be able to produce what you had in your mind and be able to take it to market. What we're able to offer, as far as most self-publishing companies have, is one, and I think quite importantly, assumingly that you are somebody that cares about having a diverse story, cares about having a story that represents children from diverse backgrounds. We have expertise in that, and we have wonderful partnerships. We have our own independent events that happen throughout the year that you can be a part of and that your book will have presence in. And just being a Kunda Kids author just means that you have automatic access to all of our distribution networks, from schools to libraries, and all of our partnerships. So I'm more than happy to talk about those with you more specifically. But yes, it goes so much more beyond, okay, thanks, here's your book, hope you like it, best of luck. I think we really realize that it's an area that, unfortunately, as Black authors and as a Black author, I don't feel like it's been very supported in the publishing, in the mainstream publishing space. So what we really want to try and do is to make sure that we meet people where they're at.
Yep. Sherelle, really great questions.
Thank you.
And Louisa, thank you so much for answering those questions. At this time, we've come to an end. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all our participants and our special guests, Marwa and Louisa. Thank you so much. Your insights and presence have truly enriched our conversations. And to all our attendees, please remember this. The world of children's publishing, it's filled with so many opportunities, and it's just really waiting for your creative mind. So if you're inspired to embark on this wonderful journey, I want to encourage you to explore the possibilities of becoming a children's book author. I promise you will not regret it. So if you have any more questions, please visit our website at kundakids.com, where you can find out more information about our publishing service. And also, at the end of this call, you're going to also receive an email with a link that, just in case you want to get in touch with us as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you.
And I hope, Corrida, in that email, we can also just maybe include a link to Malik's Bridge and also the Malik's Bridge animated trailer, which I absolutely love.
Absolutely. A lot of people have been talking about it, so we'll definitely make sure that it's included in the email.
Thank you so much, Marwa, for taking time to for sharing your journey. And it's always been a pleasure to be in your company. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.